Hailed as one of the greatest supercars of the 21st century, the Lexus LFA stands among legends such as the McLaren F1, the hybrid trio, Bugatti Veyron, and Toyota Supra. It is most known for its heavenly 4.8-liter naturally aspirated V10 engine. Launched in late 2010, the car is considered by many as one of the best things to come out of Toyota, defining what Lexus is capable of. To this day, the car still rises in value and goes for insane prices regularly, fetching just shy of $1 million, nearly thrice the introductory price. Today we will see if this 15-year-old supercar is worth all that hype from enthusiasts and collectors alike. Development began in early 2000 under the code name TXS. It was intended to be the flagship model of Lexus and a way to show the world what Toyota was capable of. It was also regularly seen at the Nurburgring for testing purposes as late as 2004. In 2005, a concept was first unveiled in the North American International Auto Show, looking like this. The car had an aluminum frame and still has the general shape of the final car, although with a less sharp front end. The sides are very similar to the real car, except for the intake above the C-pillar. At the rear, the distinctive tail lights with radiator intake fans are visible and the tri-exit exhaust remains. Later, in 2007, a new concept would be unveiled to the world in the North American International Auto Show again, this time looking more aggressive but with a radical change underneath, a carbon fiber tub to reduce weight and improve its power-to-weight ratio. There are also plans for a hybrid version with a V8 designated the LS600H, which will later lead to the very familiar LC500H. In 2008, a roadster version was also unveiled, but ultimately only 2 of the production cars were ever made. Even as late as 2009, the car was still frequently spotted at the Nurburgring for testing purposes, but this time with a fixed wing, although the production car would feature active aero. December of 2010, with only 500 examples built at $375,000. The cars were all hand-built in Japan by Toyota. Everybody and their neighbor's dog already knew the car was co-developed by Yamaha, who were responsible for the acoustics department of the car. The car was universally praised by almost all automotive journalists for its wonderful exhaust note, amazing brakes, a very low center of gravity, and a simple yet elegant interior, especially the dashboard. Finally, comprised of 65% carbon fiber reinforced polymer, which made it quite rare at the time. The engine was of course a standout feature. They opted for a 72-degree V10, as it would mean the engine would be even firing and wouldn't require a split journal crankshaft, which of course reduces weight. The engine was excellently packaged, not much larger than a V8, but weighing as much as a V6 due to its aluminum construction. The car was also quite advanced, with a TFT display for its gauges, as an analog one would have been too slow to keep up with the revs. It also had changing colors and warnings based on the drive mode it was in. Moreover, it has ducts that channel the intake noise from the engine into the cabin to give the driver the best of both worlds, the exhaust from the outside and the intake noise. The star of the show is of course the LFA's Nurburgring package. This car held the production car record briefly on the track, beating out cars like the 911 GT2 RS and the Nissan GTR. The Nurburgring package was, however, only limited to 50 units and as such was much more expensive. Was the LFA truly great, or was its performance and prestige just surface level, all hyped up by the engine sound? Well, let's start at the price. At $375,000, it's a bit higher than contemporary cars at the time. The 458, the MP412C, 911 Turbo S, the Gallardo, and most importantly, the R35 GTR. I know these cars aren't exactly similar, but they're close enough. The point I'm trying to make is that these cars are roughly the same performance-wise, but all of them start at a much lower price. The 911 starts at $133,000. The R35 especially costs way less at just under $90,000 when it was new in 2010. The 458, the MP412C, and the Gallardo are the closest compared to this thing, but nearly all these cars are cheaper than it, all while being fast. I know that being the fastest car isn't always what people are looking for, but at this price they're also looking for exclusivity. Motor Trend pointed out in the review of this car that one of the drawbacks was its transmission, which was described as there's a fussy transmission that shifts slowly, overheats after one run, lacks a park feature, and also has to be put in neutral to start. Lexus did consider a DCT in place of the production version's automated manual transmission, but was scrapped for being too smooth. The LFA certainly is very exclusive, but heritage is one thing that the car lacks. When Ferrari makes a one-off or a car of a similar scale, it is almost always sold before it's even being announced. It's because Ferrari has a motorsport heritage and a history of building cars of this kind before. The Lexus LFA was a spectacle to drive and to see being driven, but at the time customers didn't want to take a gamble from a manufacturer who hadn't done this before. The low production numbers didn't help either. Motorsports is always one of the best ways to prove what a car is worth, be it reliability, performance, or endurance. A lot of these cars have achieved legendary status due to their exceptional performance. Cars like the McLaren F1, CLK GTR, 911 GT1, etc. Many don't know, but the LFA did actually race in the Nurburgring 24 hours and the VLN races between 2008 and 2015. The car was run by Gazoo Racing. Yes, that Gazoo Racing indeed. This car basically started Toyota's modern-day racing teams that run across many different championships in the world, from WEC to Super GT. They had some success, I think, but nothing too notable really. The car was of course seen multiple times at the Nurburgring for testing purposes, with various subtle changes like a different exhaust placement or a different wing. So it would only make sense for the LFA to race at the Nurburgring. The LFA was entered in the SP8 class of the Nurburgring 24-hour race. It was widely known that this model was the LFA concept car that premiered at the North American International Auto Show in Detroit in 2005 and 2007. The purpose of entering this LFA in the Nurburgring 24 was not for promotion or attracting public attention, but purely for development testing. Whereas the models entering the race had been modified into full-fledged racing machines, the only modifications made to the LFA were the addition of regulation-compliant safety equipment and a reinforced suspension to match slick tires. No weight reduction whatsoever for racing was made. Moreover, the LFA was on the heavy side for a racing machine because of the full set of data gathering instruments installed. The car was first entered in the 4-hour VLN race in 2008, in which it finished 77th out of 200 participants. More surprisingly, however, it won in its class not by being fast, but because 5 other cars in the class DNF'd. The car was lapped 5 times over and nearly a minute slower than the fastest cars in its class. Certainly not the best start ever. Later that same year, it also participated in the legendary 24 hours of the Nurburgring. Before the race started, the car was involved in a crash before the race and was repaired in a quick 2 hours and made the race. The car qualified 27th out of 223 cars. It finally finished 121st overall and 7th out of 11 cars in its class. Looking at the average speeds around the track, the car was a good bit faster than its previous outing. It also had some reliability problems where it suffered an oil leak during the final hours of the race. In 2009, the same car was entered with very minor changes for the purpose of feedback and testing in a race environment by Gazoo Racing. This time again, the car was entered in the 4-hour VLN race where it finished first, again because the other cars didn't finish. But the car did improve its average speed and fastest lap. In the N24, 2 cars, number 14 and number 15, were entered, with number 14 being driven by the current CEO of Toyota, Akio Toyoda, who was entered under the alias Morizo. Unfortunately, 90 minutes before the race, the number 15 car suffered a separated drive shaft which caused a fire in the rear of the car and was subsequently retired. The number 14 completed the race in 4th place. 2010 was pretty good for the LFA. Now instead of being a prototype, it shared a lot more body parts and design cues with the road-going LFA. 3 cars entered along with an ISF, with the number 50 car winning in its class and beating cars like the Audi R8 and the Aston Martin V12 Vantage. The car had 170 km an hour average speed, which was significantly better than its first ever outing in 2008, but still 5 km an hour slower than the overall leaders. The number 51, however, experienced foreign substances in the engine, which required a full engine swap, which took over 11 hours and finished 156th. But the car was unable to complete the number of required laps and was thus deemed a DNF. They also raced in 2011, finishing 3rd and last in class. In 2012, they would go again, winning the SP8 class. 2013 proved tricky for Gazoo Racing as the race was hit with lots of rain and fog, causing the race to be delayed by 9 hours. But the team did make it through with a 2nd place finish because the car was given a weight reduction package resulting in a 110 kg difference. 2014 was a bit different this time, however. This time there was a Code X version of the LFA that replaced the other Gazoo Racing LFA. This version had a 5.3 litre V10 instead of the usual 4.8 litre, a full carbon fiber chassis, revised suspension, and was subsequently made to race under the SP Pro class. The car was heavily based on the GTE version of the LFA that never saw the light of day. The GTE version was meant to compete in the 2012 season of WEC alongside the LMP1 entry, but was scrapped due to logistical issues. It was also supposed to be run in the FIA GT Championships and to be sold as customer cars. These images were leaked by an employee over at Toyota Motorsport HQ in Cologne. The GTE car looked radically different from the car that raced in the N24, with much wider fenders, a different wing, and so on. The car again won in its class and finished at an impressive 11th overall, beating out some GT3 cars and 911 Cup cars. It also finished just a few minutes behind full-spec GT3 cars, proving that the car was more than capable while still having heavy restrictions on the cars. In 2015, the car would enter its final N24 race, this time again winning in its class and finishing 14th overall. It beat out cars like the 911 GT3R and the BMW Z4 GT3. In 2016, it was replaced by the Lexus RCF. The car had been racing for a full 7 years, from being a prototype designed for data collection to a failed GTE car to winning in its class and going toe-to-toe with other GT3 cars of its time. The car raced for 3 years even after the road car stopped production and has served invaluably for Toyota. Even though the LFA is seen as a commercial failure by many, it has kick-started Gazoo Racing to incredible success. It also helped them develop other cars like the RCF GT3, GT500 and the LC500 GT500 cars. all of which are racing to this day. The RCF GT3 is still extremely competitive in WEC and IMSA despite being nearly 8 years old. However, it is important to note that the car is massively helped by the BOP system in this series. Still, Lexus sports car racing hasn't come to an end. For the past few years, there has been a fair bit of footage going around the internet about the RCF successor that will be more in line with the LFA, dubbed the Lexus LFR. It was first unveiled in the 2022 Tokyo Auto Salon as a GT3 concept. From various test views and recordings, it is believed to have a twin-turbo V8 with some hybrid assistance. It was also seen as recently as the Goodwood Festival of Speed, where the road and race car were raced up the hill to millions of fans. Despite failed attempts and tragic accidents, the LFA still proved invaluable for Toyota. The car helped them form Gazoo Racing, which would go on to dominate motorsports for years to come. The wider community still doesn't know of these scrapped cars, the success of the LFA on the racetrack, or the accidents. I hope this video has spread word about this incredible journey that Toyota has been a part of.
Of the impossible. This is the pursuit of perfection.